The Lava Lake Murders, the unsolved 1924 trapper killings in Oregon Hook, a remote cabin beneath heavy snow. 3 men vanishing into the winter wilderness. Months later, a thawing mountain lake reveals what was hidden under ice. In the winter of 1923-24, 3 fur trappers set out to live and work in Oregon's Cascade Mountains. They were never heard from again. Their frozen bodies eventually surfaced, shot and beaten, in Little Lava Lake. Nearly a century later, no one has ever been charged, and the mystery endures. Background and setting here was 1923. The logging and fur trade in Central Oregon was a hard life, driven by seasonal work and a rugged, snowy landscape. Little Lava Lake lies deep in the Deschutes National Forest, far from roads and towns. In autumn, 3 local men, Edward Ed Nichols, Roy Wilson, and Dewey Morris, arranged to spend the winter there. They planned to trap pelts and care for foxes in exchange for shelter in a small log cabin owned by a local contractor. Nichols was a seasoned outdoorsman in his 50s. Wilson, in his mid-30s, had served in the Marines. Morris, the youngest at 25, worked as a logger when not trapping. The cabin was isolated. In winter, the snow would block all but the hardest paths. Communication with the outside world depended on trips to town or an occasional visitor making the long trek in. Timeline of events: late 1923, preparation in October and November 1923. The 3 men stalked the cabin and checked their traps across miles of lines laid through the forest. They sent a good quantity of furs back to town before Christmas, indicating early success. Mid-January 1924. Last sightings on January 15, 1924. A local resort owner snowshoed to the cabin while traveling to his own winter property. He stayed the night and later reported the trappers were in good spirits, well supplied, and occupied with trapping. The next morning he left, and that was the final confirmed sighting of Nichols, Wilson, and Morris alive. After this, all correspondence from the men ceased. Their traps, normally maintained consistently, were left unattended, a sign something was wrong. April 1924, discovery with spring arriving and no word from the trappers, family and friends began to worry. In mid-April, a search party arrived at the cabin. Inside, the cabin seemed undisturbed but eerily incomplete. Pots with burnt food still sat on the stove. A dining table was set, untouched. The traps were untended, and the sled for hauling furs was missing. Near the cabin, a fox pen was empty. There, searchers found a hammer with dark stains, later identified as blood. The next day, investigators found the sled by the edge of Big Lava Lake. The boards bore stains that tested positive for human blood. They also found a depression in the ice and a trail of blood leading to a spot where someone had cut a hole in the frozen surface. Boats pushed into the now thawed lake revealed the bodies of all 3 men floating just beneath the surface. Investigation details coroners examined the bodies after recovery. They found evidence of close-range violence. Each man had suffered both gunshot wounds and blows consistent with a hammer or similar blunt object. Nichols' jawbone had been shattered, and he showed signs of a close shotgun blast. Wilson had a severe shoulder wound with a bullet lodged near his head. Morris showed both gunshot wounds and significant blunt force trauma to the skull. No one saw the killings occur. Snow and isolation masked the crime until warmer months. There were no eyewitnesses and no signs of a prolonged struggle near the cabin. Key suspects or turning points early in the investigation. Authorities focused on a man named Charles Kimsey, who sometimes worked as a trapper and woodsman in the region. Nichols and Kimsey had reportedly argued over stolen goods the previous summer. Kimsey had been arrested in 1923 for robbery and an attempted murder and related to the late case, and he escaped before trial. Shortly after the trappers disappeared, A man matching Kimsey's description was seen in the nearby city with a bag of furs, the time and method suggesting a possible link to the missing men's pelts. Authorities issued a reward and tried to locate him, but no positive identification could be made. Witnesses later placed him in Montana, where he was eventually arrested for unrelated crimes in 1933. Kimsey was questioned but never charged in the Lava Lake case. Investigators lacked definitive evidence tying him to the murders. Other suspects, including passersby or transient woodsmen, were considered but ruled out or left without proof. No murder weapon was ever recovered with conclusive linkage, and the remote setting left few clues to follow. Outcome and unresolved questions more than a century after the trappers vanished. The Lava Lake murders remain officially unsolved. The Deschutes County Sheriff's Office has no active prosecution, and no one was ever convicted. Despite decades of speculation and occasional re-examinations by historians and authors, the case has resisted closure. Theories abound: disputes over fur profits, old grudges among loggers, or opportunistic violence in the wilderness. Yet without new evidence, DNA, or credible witness testimony, the truth of what happened on that cold winter night may never be known. Reflective ending in the end. The Lava Lake story is not just about three men killed far from home. It's about the silence of snow-covered forests. It's about unanswered knocks on quiet cabin doors in spring. And it's about history's persistent questions that refuse tidy conclusions. Their names, Edward Nichols, Roy Wilson, Dewey Morris, are recorded on stone in Greenwood Cemetery in Bend, Oregon. Yet the full story of their final hours lies beneath the surface of a cold lake, still waiting to be told.